On to our next news is the V20 or Value 20 at a glance. It is a global community of values experts and also practitioners that seeks to actively engage with a group of the 20. Furthermore, to add depth to the understanding of the values in public policy with the goal of providing G20 with evidence-based, human-centered policy solutions that contribute to overcoming global challenges. A number of events were held ahead of the Value 20 or V20 summit in Bali on the 20th to the 21st last month. One of it, a Carnival V20, opened with screenings of short movies from Indonesia and overseas, which was held May this year.
Yeah, and echoing on that, Carnival is an acronym for creativity and inspiration in values. The movie screening for Carnival or V20 opening was chosen as a way to generate public awareness of the importance of noble values, values in societies, values in economy, values in nature, and values in well-being. And joining us in our studio, also Zoom live virtually to talk about this, we have the co-chair of the V20 or the Value 20, Yuri Yogaswara, joining us now via Zoom application. Let's say hi and very good morning to you, Mr. Yuri. Thank you very much for taking your time and join us for this conversation on Hello G20 or on TVI World.
Hello, good morning also to you all.
Right.
I think it's good morning, good evening, and good afternoon somewhere.
Exactly, wherever they are watching us internationally. Mr. Yuri, let's just head on into our topic today, V20 or Value 20. This is something that truly inspires us. Can you shed a light on what exactly the V or Value 20 is? Some people may say it's quite abstract in a way, but you can give us a vivid example of what it's all about.
Thank you for the opportunity for Value 20 to actually describe itself. So basically, V20 or Value 20 is a global community of values experts and practitioners, community leaders that seeks to actively engage with the group of 20, G20. Our mission and vision is basically to establish a value-based society for the world, not only Indonesia. So that's why we believe in values, because values that actually makes us human. So it's the basis of humanity. And I think we're really a strong supporter of values, because we believe that values can actually make a social change to society worldwide.
Right. So, Mr. Yuri, how did the V20 within the G20 frameworks, and that is to say, one of the engagement groups that we have here throughout the deliberations across the year, how did it came to be? What inspires the V20 to come to life in Indonesia? And what are some of the most important and essential foundations to the engagement group?
I see. So again, I think the basis of it all is we believe that values can make social change or social impact to the world. And that's why every public policy should be based on values. In fact, not only public policy, every policy that corporate have, government have, should be actually based on values. I think that's the basic of it all.
Yeah.
So when it was originated first in the G20 summit in Saudi Arabia back in 2020, I think the founding member at that time, Ms. Dimah Alsih and Dr. Ghazi bin Zagar, they were actually appointed as the delegates and representative for Women 20 and Youth 20. But then they take a look at all the engagement groups at that time, and they see that, wow, why were there no values 20? Because at that time, I think Saudi Arabia is undergoing also a lot of change. They want to change one of their goals is actually to be a global player. Hence, the global values need to be incorporated in Saudi Arabia. But then they see the larger picture that I think we all, especially in this time, I think we all need to go back to the basics, which is, again, values for us. Our interaction with each other in each countries probably could prevent some wars, because values actually is the guidepost of behaviors. Yeah. So if all the leaders actually have this similar, values is basically unite us more. Everything else, I think, have some division, but I think we see each other as one race, which is human race, and our values are more similar rather than different.
Rather than they are different.
Yeah. You're right, Mr. Yuri, when you said that a value is the most fundamental or essential part in every aspect that we do, right? And therefore, I'd like to know, maybe further, if we would like to know more about how this was initiated, and was there any specific target that you want to achieve by this V20?
Yeah, thank you. I think this is a marathon. I think we know that this is not a sprint. I think the outcome and the benefit of the movement itself should be felt by our future generations. Again, the goal is to establish a value-based society. Hopefully, it's not a utopic goals, because in Indonesia itself, our founding fathers has already coined the 5 tenets, which are Pancasila, as our guideposts for our behaviors. So social justice, democracy, unity, humanity, and belief in God should be actually internalized to all Indonesians. And I think it could actually be applied to the world. I think we have more similarities rather than differences, so let's focus on what is our similarities and what could actually makes our humanity enhance in the future. So the practical application would be like, for example, character development, building. So one of our recommendation in our communique is basically we should actually adopt and promote what we call value-based education, where in primary education, which is the golden years, the formative years of our children, should be 70% based on character building. And then we start developing knowledge like science, technology, engineering, art, and math. But first and foremost, I think character building for each country could be different. But I think because we're global citizens now, we have similar values all over the world, universal values that should be the guide.
Right. Mr. Yuri, it's interesting to us when you say that we are actually more similar than we are different, which brings me to my next question to you. And you also mentioned that at the V20, you managed to achieve the communique, something that is quite rare to come by at this time of year during our presidency. So kudos to the V20 for that. So how were the dynamics like at the table of discussions and deliberations at the V20 based on the similarities more than we are different, as you said?
Thank you. So I think our delegates consist of 93 delegates. We divided into 4 task force and 1 steering committee. So it's and 60% is actually outside Indonesia. And we began our task for communique journey since February until September. And we have a final review in October. So we have reached, on our communique, we have around 27 policy recommendations and 68 policy actions. And like you said, it's very challenging, the discussion, because we have each of the country have different values. Yeah. And they have different perspective and angles. But again, since we are a part of VALUE20, one of our actually, again, our guidepost is how to actually bring multilateralism principle into the discussion. So instead of focusing on a country, we're focusing on humanity as a whole. So that is the principle of our discussion. Again, we're searching for similarities rather than differences.
Right.
And
yeah.
like I explained before, it's a challenging discussion, but it's easier because we know when we talk about values, although it's different, but the principle is the same. So it is more uniting rather than being divisive. But in the 4 months discussions, of course, there are challenges.
Well, Mr. Yuri, was everyone on board with the multilateralism concept proposed by the Indonesian government, particularly at the VALUE20 table? Because in retrospect, we look back to all of these other deliberations and meetings within the working groups, the engagement groups of the G20 this year, there have been significant differences, debates, interventions, and leading to deadlocks even. So how was that with the multilateralism concept at the V20 table and the discussions that pertain to that?
Yeah, I think first and foremost is we host our delegates. They're not only practitioners, experts, but they're actually community leaders that believe in values. So I think from the very get-go, we have similar understanding. And I think that helps a lot throughout the communique building. All challenges and conflicts or tension could be resolved because we are adopting a problem-solving mindset. So what is the solution here? Because this is not for us. This is for the world. We are serving the world, if you may. So I think we need to actually what do you call it? We need to let go of our ego.
Yeah.
Although it's not easy, but it's doable. And rather, we should achieve the common goals. And we are reminding ourselves all the time that what are the goals here? This is not for us to be right or wrong. This is not for us. This is not a stage for us. This actually, I think, what the world needs is go back to the basic, look at your values, and uphold your values, stand by your values.
Right. So all delegates of the V20, Stephanie, and also Mr. Yuri, should check their ego at the door before entering the ballroom or the meeting room of the V20, so that the deliberations can go smooth. Stephanie, you have questions, I suppose.
Yes. So, Mr. Yuri, we also want to have like a sustainable kind of thing for the outcome of this value, actually, right? So, if you could tell us, actually. Apart from like who are people behind this movement and how do you actually get the resources and how can we actually maintain this as sustainable sources to kind of like we keep going?
Okay, so we are privileged and we are very humbled to be selected as the V20 2022 organizer. But we have strong help from what we call V20 founding circles. So it started back in Saudi Arabia with the founding groups, and then it actually rolled out to Italy, and then it gained momentum also in Indonesia. So we have meetings every week with the V20 founding circle all over the world that guide us step by step throughout the year. And we grew like a family. So every challenges that we have, we always consult and try to seek advice from the V20 founding group. So we have like, what do you call it? Advisors for every step that we want to do. But they also gave us like very flexible authority to, for example, like we don't want it to be only a discussion. We don't want it to be a webinar. We don't want it to be a format of seminars. So we are actually adopting a festival concept. That's why we choose Green School, not hotels, for us, because we believe that value should be cascaded not only as an information distribution, but also emotion. So we need to engage people through activities, not only discussion. So not only cognitive, but also the affective side from people. So that's why we have dance, we have movies, we have also other activities that is actually supporting the value movement.
Just to continue with that question, actually, how in general this can benefit the G20 member countries and the world, just in general?
Yeah, I think that's the big question. So after we actually have an in-depth analysis of the G20, we saw that all the 16 summits before Indonesia all have beautiful written communique, but it is focused on strategy and a global interest at that time. But there's no guidepost for leaders' behavior, G20 behaviors and actions and policies. For example, like if I may touch a very sensitive subject for Russia and Ukraine, if we have values that is being declared by all the G20 leaders and they adopt these values as the basis of their policy recommendation, hopefully we can prevent another invasion to other countries, because it's not actually in line with the values that we are promoting as G20 leaders. So I think this is very fundamental. We're very different, the 19 countries and the European Union at G20. We need to have something that unites us. Because G20, again, like you already know, have 80% of the GDP, 70% of trade, international trade, and 67% of population. So it is very crucial if the G20 leaders align in their values.
So have we come to expect, Mr. Yuri, for these leaders to adopt these values, particularly 2 days before the Leaders' Summit?
That is actually our goals, and we have an attempt towards that. So the steering committee part that I mentioned, besides the delegates, consists of values experts and practitioners all over the world, led by Pamela Doherty from the UK, that analyzes all the G20 declarations starting to 2008 and propose 4 values, which are multilateralism, inclusion, resilience, stability. So we are actually proposing those values based on our study that G20 leaders need to adopt. And one more values that is actually come out during our summit back in October at Green School is the 5th one, which is courage. So we really we hope that at least G20 have an institutional values that they agreed on. Then actually all the policy recommendation in all engagement group, working group, and finance track is based on those values.
Right. So I'd like to echo what you just said on these values that are being proposed to the Leaders' Summit: multilateralism, inclusions, and also resilience and stability. So these 4 values, should they be adopted by these leaders, we can probably safe to bet that the war may actually stop in Ukraine, and at least ceasefire can be achieved post the G20 summit here in Bali.
Yeah, that's a very high hopes, and
exactly.
That remains our hope as well. But at least we can prevent what in the next year, so we don't have these incidents. If we can come across our differences and again choose to adopt the values. I think one of the experts in the V20, Richard Barrett, told us that belief, we all have belief, different belief, and that's very fine. But for the last 50 years, I think belief has dominated the world as the guidepost, because people trust belief, but sometimes belief divides. I think it's now time for values to step in, because what belief divide, values unite. So again, we're more similar than we think. we're a member of only one single race, that is the human race, and we need to actually go back to our values and enhance our future humanity.
Right, Mr. Yuri, and also Stephanie, at the time when we are seeing dividing lines among the nations within the G20 member states seem to be more obvious, seem to be more palpable, I guess these values will play a very integral, a very important role to unite us back into the visions of, changing the world into a better state.
Yes.
Stephanie.
Okay. So, Mr. Yuri, this is not the first one actually for this V20 movement. So, what has been evolved from the previous one and then to this next, maybe perhaps like in the future, next movement again?
In terms of V20?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I think we have evolved from the first V20 is on Saudi, and the theme is actually the value of values. So I think the theme at that time is focusing on how to introduce the importance and significance of values, not only to families, but also at the national and global level. And then it rolls out to Italy, where the theme is values in action. So values, like you said, sometimes is being perceived as 30,000 feet above the ground concept, but it's actually not. It's actually very simple. It's behaviors. So how do we actually shape the behaviors of not only leaders, but people? So Italy, the communique focus on 3 behaviors that is really important for the world during the pandemic, because it's 2021.
Yeah.
The 3 behaviors are integrity, solidarity, and sharing. That's values in action. And then in Indonesia, we have our theme is values at the center, and we aim for sustainability. So at the center of everything, at the center of policy, at the center of a decision, at the center of actions. So it's actually day to day. So that's Indonesia. And in India, in 2023, it will be, the theme is leading with values. So they put a leadership component into the values. Not only it's being adopted by all the leaders, but actually values is a key essence for leadership, world leadership.
Right. 2 years into its implementations within the G20, as you said, it was the inception was during the G20's presidents under Saudi Arabia's presidency, and then 2 years after Italy and now Indonesia. How far have we come in terms of these G20 member states embracing the concept of these values, Mr. Yuri?
Yeah. Thank you. I think one of our inputs or feedback, if you may, for G20 is there's a lot of discussions. There's a lot of heavy discussions, but compared to the discussion, we see less portion of actions. So the communique should be implemented. The communique should be not only action-oriented, but it should be applied on the ground. So I think this year, what we have done is not only having pre-summit to socialize values for a larger audience, but we also have projects. So we have projects with corporations, with non-state actors that is aiming to realize all the celebration of ideas that we put into our communique. Again, we have 27 policy recommendation and 68 policy recommendations. So it's probably not all is going to be implemented, but those are very great ideas that should be implemented right now. And in stages, we are trying to have all the policy recommendation being implemented. So I think implementation, execution is what we are trying to propose also to the G20 community. So it's not only an academic exercise. It's not only, again, the 30,000 above the ground concept, not only for academicians or for the government, but also for the people on the street.
Right. It's certainly inspiring what you just said there, Mr. Yuri. Just on the last note, my final question to you for our conversations. In a couple of days, the summit will kick in, and then also at the end of it, we'll be handing over our presidency to India. How do we keep the momentum going for the V20 ahead of India's presidency of the G20?
Yeah. Again, we're very privileged. We have a very strong V20 founding circle. It's like it's like a family. So the V20 founding circle is actually the driving force behind all the V20 movement. So I think I couldn't say the same for other engagement groups, because sometimes in other engagement groups, I know for a fact that each country that is hosting the G20 is the one who actually has to come up with everything, but not that way with the V20, because we are still staying strong, the relationship with our V20 founding members.
All right, co-chair.
So I think that community should be not only maintained but preserved, also in Brazil and other countries after Brazil.
Right. Okay. So, Mr.
Mr. Yuri
Yogaswara, our co-chair of the V20. This is our time for this dialogue. We'd like to express our gratitude. Thank you very much for your insights and your time here for our dialogues here in Hello G20. We wish you the best of luck for future endeavors of the VALUE20. Thank you very much, Mr. Yuri.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It certainly opens our eyes, right, on how important it is to have values embraced by, the G20 member states, and most importantly, for the leaders ahead of the summit that we're going to see unfold in a couple of days, Stephanie.
Yeah, like this values actually is the most essential also part of this G20 also, and also in each pillar of this G20 as well, right? So we hope that we will see like a sustainable, perhaps like results also from the, like the value itself, right?
Okay. Hello G20 will take a short break. We'll be right back in just a few moments. Stay with us right here on TVRI World. Hey there, you were still watching Hello G20, coming to you live from the beautiful Bali, Indonesia. We're right here ahead of the summit as we count down for the summit on the 15th and 16th of November. Still with us here, Rahmat Idris, and also my partner, Stephanie Silitonga. And Stephanie, earlier, we talked to the co-chair of the V20 or VALUE20. And now, as he mentioned earlier, a couple of elements within the VALUE20, including one of them is movies. So we'd like to know deeper how movie will play, or has played rather, an important part in inspiring values. Stephanie.
So together with us now, joining via Zoom, we already have Amalia Sekarjati, the Distribution Officer of Collective Film.
Hello.
Miss Amalia, yes, how are you this morning?
Hi, I'm good. Good morning, everyone. How are you guys?
Thank you for joining with us. So we would like to know actually about this movie curator. So what do you want to achieve actually from the movie screening, and also why?
Okay, so basically when Collective Film was contacted by V20 team, we start discussing about V20 itself, their agenda, or they share their research about the values in Indonesia and around the world. Then from there, we start to pick and curate the film itself to be screened and to be participating in V20. The main idea of the curation, technically we combine the short films and also the feature-length films. So we have a variety of type of films. But then for the values itself, there's a combination and various and diversity issues that has been responded by filmmakers, either it's Indonesian or overseas.
Right. Amalia, why do you think movies are such a perfect platform to convey the message of value and to inspire values within our communities?
Okay. As we know, film itself is the last the combination of any other kind of art form. So like we know it has its audio, it has its visual, so it's audio visual. So for the sensory itself, it's more intriguing for the audience to connect it or response the film. So I think the film, the characteristic of the films, the complexities, and also the power of the film itself is being used, especially lately, even for Indonesian filmmakers to propose or present how they respond or how they respond the society, also for the values they want to capture and to present it in the films. And so I think for the audience, it will be easily and it will be more accessible for a wider audience to engage and learn from films.
All right. Amalia and also Stephanie, before we continue on with our conversations on the V20 Reinventing Values Through Movies, we do have a special, probably short screening of one of the short films that you guys featured at the engagement group. Let's take a look at this next visual.
Hei, kau dari mana?
Halo, saya dari warung.
Di sana kau, Bapak deka-deka.
Kenapa?
Saya tidak...
All right. Okay, Amalia, that's called telur, egg, obviously. And there's a little bit of components of stop motion there, if I may say. What can you tell us about that short visual?
Yes, so when we pick these films, we found that it's not only the value the filmmakers want to propose or capture, but in the films, but also the way or the more current trends of the way of storytelling about the value itself for the film. As we know, the Indonesian short films and Indonesian short filmmakers is also growing and more expanding their way to communicate, their way to experiment. And I think the Telur films and Fania choose the interesting way to communicate and to share her experiences about the discrimination and promoting tolerance from this film.
So with that kind of like a short film and a very interesting one itself, so what is actually your target audience for this kind of movie and why?
I think this film has been used lately to it make it filmmaker easier to communicate with their audience, and so its way is developing from years to years, and from the technology, and so the access of information and knowledge, and also any kind of films make the filmmakers nowadays to get more change to have space for there to express their ideas and also creativity in telling their stories or some values.
Right. However, Amalia, from what we know in our experiences, it's always a difficult and challenging task to infuse the so-called values into movies and to make it exciting and attractive at the same time? We don't want to watch a movie that's, you know, quote unquote, that's preaching to us. So how exactly our filmmakers out there are infusing values into their movies and making it attractive at the same time?
So I think either it's films or any other art forms, the values is not a final state or like final statement that that you said before. It's not to preach their kind of one value, belief or else, but the film is can be a starter to sparks or ignite for further discussion. So the film is being used as a medium to not only explore the aesthetic part, but also to it's been used as a medium to like telling the value, but because it has the creative way and creative part, so it can minimalize the way of telling that we say quote unquote preaching,
Right.
and so it's more like started to spark the discussion.
To spark the
Further.
discussions, to incite ideas on where we want to go next, and to sort of have conversations on it. So you watch the movie, you are inspired by it, but you don't feel like, oh, I watched it and then I'm doing something wrong with my life. So, Stephanie, your question, please.
Yeah, so it's very important to see the value of the film as well, and with a short kind of film as well. But the message is actually kind of like grab the attention of its audience. So if you could also tell us like what's the impact of this film to generate to the viewers?
Sorry?
Yes.
It's
so,
raining outside, so like, yeah.
So Amalia, if you can tell us like the impact does this film generate to the audience or the viewers?
Oh, okay. So there's one session in VALUE20 when we do the watch party, because we have hybrid. One session we make it online and the other session we make it offline. But in the online session, we have the watch party. So like the audience can do the live chat while they're watching. Then we found that the response from the audience, as I've said and mentioned before, like it sparks the passion that from one film we can gain so many perspectives. And just like the VALUE20 as a forum, the watch party and use the film to be a forum, and the participants can share their response also for what has been there, what they has been watching from the film. And I think the first step is the first impact maybe for active part as an individual, so they can use after we watch it, we can more reflective of what we have done or what we can do. But then from the forum we can share and gain the feeling of togetherness after watching a film. Then we can create discussion and to learn what is the different perspective that we have from one film. That I think it's the first step and the first impact we can.
Yeah. So
all right. Apparently, we're having a little bit of technical glitch there. Frozen frame from Amalia Sukarjati. We certainly hope that we can resolve the problems to continue the conversations, right?
Yeah.
Stephanie?
Right.
So let's try again. We're currently trying to reach the distribution officer of Collective Film, Amalia Sukarjati, joining us virtually here on Hello G20. Amalia, are you with us now? All right. So I guess we have to hold it off for a while. Stephanie, we know that we have, and also you, you and I have so many questions left for her that we're just going to have to do it some other times. Again, we'd like to convey our sincere appreciations and thank Amalia Sekarjati, Distribution Officer of Collective Film, for joining us in this conversation. Thank you very much. Let's go on to the next report, Stephanie.
So yeah, the next one is the G20 summit in Bali is only days away. One may wonder of the preparedness of hotels in Bali. Well, the short answer for this is that all hotels in Nusa Dua and nearby have been prepared to host the most important summit.